Good evening, audience. Maybe I should say dear audience, but you'll realize that you're dear to me very soon. From now on, Radio Concepto FM 95.5 from Argentina will broadcast this program every Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Boston time under the title And a Time to Smile. Before the very beginning, I wish to dedicate this first program in English to James Swanson, Jim, who was a class officer every year since our freshman year, including senior class president, and he's written our class notes for MIT's Technology Review magazine since graduation. More important than all that, he was and still is kind, invisible, warm, efficient, quite a human being. Thank you very much, Jim. Don't change, please. Now, let's get on the road. Not easy for me. Quite soon, you'll find out that I'm a bit like James Thurber's Walter Mitty, a character from a marvelous short story called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty that New Yorker magazine published in 1939 and that some of us read in school. Well, yes, there are some movies on the theme. In that short story, Walter Mitty is a fellow who frequently loses his direction, his gyroscope, or his GPS would say now, and spends most of his time daydreaming rather than living in the real world. Yes, of course, you may ask me, which one is the real world? We'll get there. But before the beginning, I would like to honor Walter Mitty's dreams with some help from the lyrics of All I Have to Do Is Dream, a beautiful theme performed by the Everly Brothers that I warmly recommend you to listen to in YouTube. What does the song say? All I have to do is dream. When I want you in my arms, when I want you and all your charms, when I feel blue in the night and I need you to hold me tight, whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Some of you will suggest that I attend an old mixer, that is a dance or a ball, a Baker House, Burton Corner House, or the Student Center, because I agree, dreaming is dreaming. Dreaming is no solution. Dreaming is pleasant. It is Freudian. A dream is a wish. It is Disney too. It is a dream come true. But it's not for us. Before, yes, there's always a before in my stories. You may already have some questions. Well, that is the purpose of this program, to ask as many questions as possible. Do you remember the story of the teenager in a philosophy class that heard his professor announce that philosophy tried to develop important questions in people? And the student asked, "What is an important question?" Of course, the professor replied, "Your question is an important question." But not all questions are important questions. Our procedure will be like this. I will share my important questions with you, and I hope to hear your important questions so that they become my important questions too. Let's continue with the beginning. And don't smile, please. Of course it's wrong. Your beginnings begin. They do not continue or end anything. But in our sometimes very turbulent world, we continue beginnings and we start continuations. Funny, isn't it? I'm talking about funny things. Why did I name this program And a Time to Smile? You may think that I simply translated the Spanish name of the program and that's it. No, it's not the case. In the Spanish-speaking world, this program is called Buenos Recuerdos, Good Memories, and it is announced as a program that does not deal with nostalgia, melancholy, and the like. It simply steps on the past to enjoy it, and to remember our magnificent resources to think and to live in present times. What do you mean, you may ask me? Am I going to talk on self-help? No, please. I cannot even help myself. I would never think of helping someone else. I always remember my audiences and my students that I obtained 3 degrees from MIT, a major one in chemical engineering, a minor one in philosophy, and a medium one in life saving, and of course that I never saved anybody's life. As you already know, I come from Argentina, a country that lives in turmoil since many years back. Perhaps I should remind the engineering portion of the audience that the flow of our rivers is not laminar but turbulent. We like to talk about politics, economics, and football, but we end up losing family and friends. What does this program deal with? They normally ask me in anger. What can you talk about if you're not engaged in politics? I talk about literature, philosophy, and humor. I've done this for the last 100 programs in Spanish, and I'll start a similar way in English. But before, let me identify myself, or at least let me identify my deeds so that you may understand a bit more about my approach. I worked as a project manager within an important construction company in Argentina, Uruguay, and the States. Then I became a mining engineer in the cold Argentinian south. A lot of gold, silver, copper, and zinc, but not for me. Later I took a post as Dean of Admissions at a local university, and finally I taught humor in literature at our Buenos Aires Modern Arts Museum, our little MoMA. As I previously said, I normally talk about literature, philosophy, and humor. But normally I'm not that normal. I did broadcast 100 programs in Spanish, and today, with your kind help, I'll start a similar path in English. My Spanish program title song is Song Sung Blue by Neil Diamond because I love its music and its lyrics, particularly when Neil sings, "Me and you are subject to the blues now and then, but when you take the blues and make a song, you sing them out again." I think he's correct. I invite you to try singing your favorite song next time you're sad. Of course, I come from the scientific world, so I could tell you to perform the reverse exercise. That is, try to become sad while you're singing. Very hard too. Of course, you could be sad and forget about happiness and music and will become like most human beings in this planet. On the other hand, I also invite you to listen to this program and not to be sad at all. But let's go back to the smile in the title of this program. As I just told you, I've taught humor at our Museum of Modern Arts in Buenos Aires. During my course, I would tell the audience that laughing and crying are the expressions of comedy and tragedy, respectively. Two ways in which human beings lose their heads. That is, two situations in which human beings momentarily lose their being to become objects, as we would say in a philosophy class. Instead, humor is a rational condition in which we are in full control of our senses while standing on a tragic background that we cover with a thin carpet comedy while not losing our consciousness about the existence of an underlying tragedy. Humor is like a perfume of comedy. On the other hand, while designing the title, I stole two smiles, one from a book and another one from a song. The book is called The Ecclesiastes, one of my favorite pieces of literature, which is located in the Bible, and the song is called A Certain Smile and is sung by Johnny Mathis. Let's go to the third chapter of the book. It is called A Time for Everything. Most of you know it and will recall it. Some of you will listen to it for the first time and discover it, and perhaps will love it too, like many generations did before you. And this is not a religious statement. It is a poetic statement, and poetry is life. That is, if you want to make your life a masterpiece. Here it is. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. You heard the same verses in a song called Turn, Turn, Turn by Pete Seeger, between parentheses, to everything there is a season. Yes, Pete Seeger put music to those fantastic biblical verses, and although he changed their order, I bet that he was blessed for his composition. Did he plagiarize? No. To begin with, he attached the biblical name of the chapter to his record. On the other hand, I never heard that heaven brought Pete to court for singing Ecclesiastes. Of course, you will tell me that the preacher in Ecclesiastes, who appears to be King Solomon himself, never said "and a time to smile." Quite true. This radio program will search for smiles, like Alice in Wonderland's Cheshire's cat. Remember the cat that could gradually disappear, leaving its smile behind? I wish that from you, my audience, and myself, to become those smiles, permanent smiles, that fade away slowly. Let's begin our first program, please. I used the Chinese expression "a day, 3 autumns" to announce it. What does it mean? It means that we miss someone. Each day we wait for her or for him seems to last a lot more time, like 3 autumns in the poetic Chinese world, 3 years in Greenwich, 1,000 days in Argentina, 1,001 nights in Baghdad, and forever and a day in Russell Square, London. Who do we miss so much? We miss Confucius. Who? Confucius. But why worry about Confucius? He lived 25 centuries ago. We miss him because he fixed his chaotic world when it suffers some of our present problems. But who was Confucius after all? According to the statute that the Chinese government has donated to the city of Buenos Aires for its rose garden called Rosedal, Confucius was a teacher and a pedagogue, a teacher that started a religion. Perhaps that makes it a more credible religion, or a lot more than a religion. When we talk about his teachings, we refer to a choral mode. We just know that 25 centuries ago, after he died, Chinese children would still remember Confucius when reaching school. But let's put some Chinese music to introduce Confucius himself, please. Why so short? Because I don't want you to sleep with the music. My voice should be enough. Better than pills, used to say my lady friends throughout my life. On the other hand, this Chinese music is copyright free, and I can use it freely in my YouTube. In this same radio program Alive, today, at a later time, there'll be a Chinese song called Look Toward Beijing on the Grassland. The lyrics are quite interesting. Eagles are flying in the blue sky. I am standing on the prairie to look at Beijing. Listen carefully to your mother's voice, seeing through the mountains and ridges. Horses in the green pasture. I sing Beijing in the grassland. whose eyes have passed the scenery, sing the five-star red flag against the wind. The description is pastoral. Beethoven himself could have composed a symphony with it, but the last verse is clearly patriotic and political. Why? Because Mao used Confucius' thoughts and morals to become Mao. But let's get back to Confucius. Our teacher lived in China from 551 to 471 before Christ. His main book is the Analects. He was a man with no success in the field of politics or government affairs. The worst part of it was that he believed that the only way to influence the society was through government. Well, he failed, and he also succeeded. He taught his disciples and students arts such as rites, music, archery, chariotry, calligraphy, and mathematics, and the six traditional books, which were and are classic poetry, documents, rites, I Ching, and spring and autumn annals. There was a sixth book dedicated to music, but it was lost or burned. Let's remember there was a similar situation with Aristotle, whose book on comedy got lost while his book on tragedy, the Poetics, survived. So we prefer tragic rather than comic situation. In Shakespearean terms, Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, Othello are supposed to be better than comedies like Much Ado About Nothing or A Midnight Summer Dream, or in the Greek case, tragic authors like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides rather than the Aristophanes comedies. Confucius was a one-man university, like Socrates. Both of them were mistreated, but Socrates was sent to death by popular democratic vote, while Confucius was allowed to return to his homeland when he was too old to have a post of any sort. Why is Confucius so important for us? Did we not learn from Kipling that East is East and West is West and never the twain shall meet? Yes, but that was very long ago. Now we meet every day and every night. The East and the West and the East. The world's spider web has expanded and linked us all, whether we have or have not good chemistry among ourselves. But simultaneously with this very healthy growth, something else happened. Something very negative happened. Individuality and selfishness made us think that we are the only ones. Our family the only family, our country the only country, and so on. This has led to differences and clashes that took place at Confucius' times and at the time of the judges in the Old Testament, and perhaps at our own times, very close to our own spheres. At this point, I will seek help from Huston Smith's book on Oriental religions. Let me say that Huston Smith was one of my best professors at MIT. He taught Oriental religions, and well, he had something to say on Confucius. In his book, he tells us about a system to make peace when a peaceful tradition does not exist. No, you may say. There was a peaceful Chinese tradition because we talk about autumns and springs, the mild seasons, and when there are mild seasons, there must be peace. The system applied by Confucius is called deliberate tradition. It differs from spontaneous tradition in requiring very much attention. Remember that tradition is not custom and that custom is not fashion. If you look at it from the standpoint of literature, for example, you may say that tradition is like the sacred books, custom is like the classics, and the fashion is like bestsellers. How do you build a sacred book or a tradition? Very hard, if not impossible, unless you are Confucius. He did it in the following way. He taught 5 key terms. The first term was yen, which involves simultaneously a feeling of humanity towards others and respect for oneself. Goodness that links the words man and two. The term was good enough for our species, and at the same time it excluded individuality, a word that could stand for human-heartedness. So the first one, yen, was human-heartedness. The second, which is the main key, is chun tzu, true gentlemanhood, superior man, manhood at its best, gentleman, of course. But today the word gentleman appears to indicate only matters of etiquette, that is, if a person is well dressed, well behaved, or if he knows how to honor a lady at the appropriate times. Nevertheless, the word etiquette itself refers to the ticket on the outside of a package, the ticket that indicates what is inside. By the way, do you open the doors to the ladies, or you consider that a ceremony from old times, or even worse? Then don't worry. Do you know how to handle an umbrella? But there are more important things to have in mind according to Confucius. Being a gentleman is the basis for building an appropriate world. He would say, if there be righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. If there be beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. If there be harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. If there be order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. What? How does he get there? It is pure nonsense, you may say. Well, this pure nonsense proved to be right, practical, efficient, and heavenly without being religious. But let's step to the third. That is li, propriety, the way things should be done. Confucius wanted to remember the best social past he could find within his own society because he knew we tend to forget some of our best acquisitions or even our own background. So, in order to build this kind of propriety, he would concentrate on 5 things. The rectification of names, that is, the use of the proper names. That is something that semantics does, and it's very important. Then, the mean. The mean is to avoid the extremes, just like Aristotle did in the Golden Middle. Then he concentrated in the family, the 5 key relationships, and he concentrated on age. He was very respectful to terms of age. This is one key point in which Confucius and Lao Tse from Taoism coincided, and they did not coincide with the Buddhist concept, because Buddhism, just like Hinduism, believes in reincarnation. The fourth one was Te. Te is power, but it was power, in Confucius terms, is government by virtue, because power must be moral according to him. Let's take the 3 essentials of government for him were economic sufficiency, military sufficiency, and the confidence of the people. But he could lack economic sufficiency or military sufficiency, but he could not have a government without the confidence of the people. And the 5th one is when. The 5th one is the art of peace. Well, this is a basic overview with the help of Confucius, so that we can look at it, apply it, meditate it, or whatever. But it was one of the codes that had very much to do with the structures of our society. A distant society, but our society in the end. So, for the time being, ladies and gentlemen, I say let's hope we get together next Saturday when we talk about smiles and about new cultures. Good evening, and thank you very much for being there.